Sweden has likely detained a Russian cargo ship. It was heading to St. Petersburg. The vessel Kaffa was sailing in territorial waters under the flag of Guinea. However, Swedish authorities believe this is just a cover, since until June of last year, this ship sailed under the Russian tricolor. The cargo ship Kaffa is also currently under sanctions imposed by Ukraine for transporting grain from annexed Crimea to Syria.
As a matter of fact, the Russian economy is bearing a significantly more substantial cost for the war against Ukraine than the Kremlin is willing to publicly acknowledge. According to Germany's Federal Intelligence Service, Russia's actual budget deficit in 2025 was a full quarter higher than what Moscow officially reported.
Moreover, almost all sectors of the enemy's economy are experiencing negative trends, and the system itself is becoming increasingly dependent on energy. But this main source of foreign currency revenue has now been significantly reduced by Ukrainian attacks on infrastructure, the forced sale of oil at a substantial discount, and of course, global sanctions.
But Moscow wouldn't be Moscow if it didn't constantly keep trying to deceive everyone and circumvent these restrictions through various maneuvers. How are they doing this, and who is helping them? Yevgenia Tereshchenko will explain.
They say there is no reason to worry and everything is perfectly fine.
Our nation has developed a resilient immunity to Western economic restrictions and will continue to confidently develop its economic, including energy, capabilities, and potential.
But the massive deficit in the Russian budget has grown to obscene proportions, and the most significant blow has been dealt to oil and gas revenues.
We expect the Russian budget deficit this year to be between 120 and 135 billion. Previously, they covered it with oil and gas revenues through taxes on the oil and gas sector.
But the situation may change. The blockade of maritime routes in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz has already led to a sharp increase in global oil prices. And as Volodymyr Zelensky noted, such a price increase benefits Russia. The president is calling on the EU to introduce a 20th package of sanctions. Restrictions that could have anchored Russia's shadow fleet were blocked by Hungary.
In order to take the necessary steps and restrict the movement of the so-called shadow fleet, all sanctions, not just these, must be constantly updated, adding new vessel or company names.
Despite the fact that there are more than 500,000 vessels from Russia's shadow fleet on the sanctions lists, this is not enough.
All vessels must be subject to sanctions. It is also necessary for us to respond when a vessel sails under a false flag or without any flag at all.
Illegal Russian oil steadily continues to be transported and bought up.
China and India, because they really like the Russian discounts on oil and gas, and they turn a blind eye to various unsanctioned, yes, officially unsanctioned violations of the transportation and purchasing regime and everything else.
And some countries help Russia sell oil and petroleum products bypassing sanctions, especially those that are dependent on Russian resources.
Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, that is basically, well, Russian proxy countries. In addition, the countries that help to circumvent, well, these are the countries now, as we see, where military actions are also taking place. For example, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, the countries of the Persian Gulf in particular. Well, for example, I want to mention Turkey as the most well-known example of processing Russian oil into oil products. And when formally Russian oil is processed and sold as if it is no longer Russian.
Russia comes up with various schemes. In particular, it tries to copy Iran's experience. First and foremost, we're talking about a shared market for sanction evasion services.
For example, consider the pool of the shadow fleet tankers. A vast collection of tankers, many of which are frequently utilized by both Russia and by Iran. The very same thing can also be said about the global financial infrastructure. That is, there are intermediary companies operating in this market, and they can provide services to both Russia and Iran.
Moreover, thanks to its strategic geographical location, Iran is a key part of the supply chain for dual-use goods coming from Europe.
A wide variety of electronics and a huge range of technological products that no one sells directly to Russia are instead sold to the United Arab Emirates or the country of Oman. And then, from Oman and the Emirates, these specific goods are imported into Russia through Iran. You can even take a closer look at how the total volume of Iranian-Omani trade has grown recently. But in reality, that's an illusion because it's not Iranian-Omani trade, it's Russian-European trade that went through Oman and Iran.
Russia's needs are significant.
First of all, this includes drilling equipment, software, geological exploration tools, as well as GPS technologies and data processing. This also includes microchips, electronics, optics, mechanical engineering, and technologies.
Some of the equipment that Russia cannot purchase legally but constantly needs, such as CNC machines, has been replaced with Chinese equivalents. However, China is also a transshipment hub.
a wide variety of sanctioned goods that are produced in countries of the sanctions coalition and then eventually sold and transported into Russia through various third countries. Among other countries that are most, let's say, interested in or have been observed engaging in these transshipment practices, these are also well-known states. These include Turkey, the United Arab Emirates, and Kyrgyzstan.
It is likely that this is how the Russian Federation obtains high-tech components from foreign manufacturers.
Alternatively, it could be offshore manufacturing facilities or a joint venture, or even a subsidiary of a Western-based corporation in China or other Asian countries. And through a number of various distributors, such equipment also eventually finds its way into the Russian military-industrial complex.
These are often shell companies, and it is highly probable and likely that these are intentionally disguised and hidden Russian assets and Russian companies registered under third parties. And they are the ones who, until they are finally caught, are actively supplying and distributing these technologies. But the most effective measure against this, in my experience, is individual sanctions.
Energy restrictions also work, though more slowly. At one time, Iran was one of the world's largest suppliers of oil and, to some extent, gas.
Iran has entirely and completely lost any dominant share of the global market and will never regain it. Despite the fact that they are still somehow trying to use various deceptive and clandestine methods, the same fate awaits Russia. Russia, by building the Iranian model, will find itself in a very similar and restrictive Iranian-style isolation.
Already now, Russia has lost its status as a key gas supplier in the world and its second place in oil supply.